The stock market back on edge as tragic events unfold in Canada. In today's cover story, taking the worry out of paying for college. Plus, Johnson & Johnson enters the race to cure Ebola. And the clock is ticking for a film studio desperately in need of another box office smash. First Business starts now.
You're watching First Business. Financial news, analysis, and today's investment ideas.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Angela Miles. It's Thursday, October 23rd. In our first look, gunfire shatters the stock market rally. Yesterday's session started with gains but turned lower after shots rang out at Canada's Parliament. The Dow tumbled triple digits, falling 153 points. The Nasdaq 36 and the S&P 14. Gold and oil were negative on the day, with gold down $10 and oil $2.10. In earnings after the bell, more drama. In heavy trading volume, AT&T shares slipped after missing earnings by a penny. Yelp plunged nearly 15%. Yelp top forecast, but reduced its sales outlook. Fifth Street postpones its IPO, citing volatile conditions in the stock market. And an Apple Pay apology is coming from Bank of America. The bank charged people using Apple Pay twice for their purchases. It affected 1,000 transactions. Trader Todd Horwitz of Average Joe Options has his eyes on the market for us today. Good morning, Todd.
Good morning, Angie. What's up?
Well, the market had a somber tone yesterday because of the shootings in the Canadian capital. What do you suspect will happen with the market action today?
I think we're going to see possibly a little continuation of selling. I think, as bearish as I have been, and I'm still bearish the market, but the actual action yesterday, and I don't expect it to be very bearish today, I think we're seeing just some natural profit taking. Remember we had a 120-point rally in the S&P from the bottom, so you would think that at some point somebody's going to take profit. So I think that's all we're seeing right here.
Will we see more volatility? Because right now, volatility on the VIX is just absurd. The VIX has been down more than 10%, 3 sessions in a row, and then jumped up more than 10% yesterday. What is this telling you about the market?
The volatility where it's at now, which is around the 16 or 17 level, is really not eventful to begin with. Back, if you look at a 20-year moving average of implied volatility, it's usually over 20%, and that's the actual correct price where we should be. So we're still underpriced on volatility, which makes it for traders a much more difficult trade, which is why we've seen the markets drift higher. But one of the things we are still seeing is some price volatility, and if price volatility remains in this market, which I mean is the big swings, 200-point moves inside the days, then real volatility is going to come back to the market, and there will be some more fear if this continues.
Thank you for coming on the show today. Thank you for your thoughts.
Thank you so much.
A member of Canada's Parliament is calling yesterday's shooting a horrific day. Several shots were fired in the Canadian capital of Ottawa, killing a soldier and the gunman, identified as a convert to Islam, who was fatally hit by a top Canadian security official. Authorities placed Ottawa on lockdown and raised the terror alert. The shooting happened at the Canada War Memorial and inside the Parliament building. President Obama is promising solidarity with our neighbors to the north.
And it's very important, I think, for us to recognize that when it comes to dealing with terrorist activity, that Canada and the United States has to be entirely in sync.
Earlier this month, Canada confirmed plans to join the U.S.-led campaign of airstrikes against Islamic State militants in Iraq. Chuck Coppola joins me now with a growing airbag recall in the U.S.
7.8 million vehicles are in a widespread recall caused by faulty airbags. That's up from the initial figure of 4.7 million. Drivers are being urged to take immediate action. GM is urging car owners not to allow riders in the front passenger seat. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration says airbags supplied by Takata Corporation have the potential to explode with too much force. As many as 10 automakers are now affected. The majority of the cars, Hondas, built between 2001 and 2011. The full list of models is available at safercar.gov.
Johnson & Johnson is stepping up efforts to erase Ebola. J&J plans to begin testing an Ebola virus vaccine in humans in January. The drug maker could have 250,000 doses ready by May if it wins FDA approval. J&J shares rallied Wednesday to $101. Johnson & Johnson is working in a partnership with Denmark-based biotech Bavarian Nordic. That stock gained nearly $7.
Medical devices are being investigated for possible cybersecurity flaws. Shares of device makers Hospira and Medtronic fell in trading yesterday after it was revealed that the companies are just 2 of 12 said to be involved in an investigation by the Department of Homeland Security. Several published reports indicate officials are concerned that hackers could exploit flaws in medical devices. Well, currently, there are no instances of hackers trying to infiltrate the devices.
Turning to some Christmas cheer, FedEx predicts a record burst of business this holiday season. The delivery company expects to move more than 290 million packages between the day after Thanksgiving and Christmas Eve. After last year's snafu of not being able to keep up with the last-minute rush of buying by shoppers online, FedEx is investing $1.2 billion in expanding the company. However, one retail analyst says it's too soon to forecast the broader retail Christmas season due to a potential glut of inventory.
I'd like to see what the Halloween numbers look like, because that's usually the canary in the coal mine.
Target is attempting to attract holiday traffic by offering free shipping on purchases now through December 20th.
In today's cover story, Morningstar Financial has some help for parents trying to save money for college. A new list and ratings of more than 60 of the largest college savings plans available. There are 2 kinds of so-called 529 plans. About a dozen states offer locked-in tuition prices at a prepaid rate, usually with a residency requirement. The other may be used for a range of college costs. Both offer tax breaks, but the latter of the two is similar to a mutual fund, carries some risk, but are ones to be cautious about as well because some have a lot of fees.
Most negative rated plans have really high price tags, and so a lot of research from Morningstar and other sources have shown that fees are a strong predictor of future performance. And if you're starting out with a high fee, your performance is going to lag. For the plan that does not lock in tuition, there may be some out-of-pocket costs even for those who invest early. Still, the best performers include Maryland College Investment Plan, the Howe Price College Savings Plan, the Vanguard 529 College Savings Plan, and Utah Educational Savings Plan. The fund companies behind them, T. Rowe Price or Vanguard. The T. Rowe Price plans in particular have done so well because they have a higher equity exposure, and stocks have done pretty well. So they're going to grow faster than a bond-heavy portfolio, for example, which has a smaller expected return.
You don't have to be a resident of the state where the college savings plan was issued to participate, nor do you have to use it at a school within that state. There are tax penalties if you withdraw funds early, but financial services directors say financial need has only grown, not shrunk, during the nation's economic recovery.
Back in 2006, 2007, probably about 35% of our families received a federal Pell Grant, and today we're close to 50%.
Another reason to encourage saving for college, student debt. The average college senior who's taken out loans graduates roughly $30,000 in debt.
JP Morgan executives may face questions about the controversial hiring of family members of prominent Chinese officials. The Wall Street Journal reviewed documents related to the bank's hiring practices in China. The Journal reports several of the bank's executives were warned of potential problems with the practice. The hiring program is reportedly under the scrutiny of the SEC. The bank is not commenting.
Apple and GT Advanced Technologies are parting ways. The Wall Street Journal reports that the parting is amicable. GT Advanced shocked Wall Street this month by abruptly filing for Chapter 11 after Apple chose not to use GT's Sapphire Glass in its iPhone 6. The company is closing its Arizona facility and laying off hundreds of workers. A judge will decide whether details of GT's supplier contract with Apple should be made public. Apple shares hit an all-time high yesterday of $103.95 before closing just under $103.
Lawmakers are calling for an investigation into why Jimmy John's is making workers sign non-compete contracts. According to the Huffington Post, the sandwich chain has a policy barring hourly employees from working at competing restaurants. Members of Congress are calling it a form of intimidation. Crane Chicago reports the Jimmy John owes the state of Illinois more than $1.4 million in taxes on a pair of corporate jets. Jimmy John's did not return our call.
Asian buyers investing in U.S. real estate are on track for a record. Real estate firm CBRE reports that Asian investors have spent $522 million on multifamily properties so far this year. San Francisco, Los Angeles, and New York are the most popular cities. Also, the firm says that the trend has shifted away from luxury condos in favor of apartment buildings.
It's mortgage madness as home buyers scramble to take advantage of the lowest mortgage rates in months. The Mortgage Bankers Association reports an 11.6% jump in mortgage applications, but it was a 23.3% surge in refinancing that highlights the action. The 30-year fixed is 3.97%. The 15-year is 3.18%.
Boeing has a hard landing after earnings. The stock fell 4% after reporting higher profits. However, investors sent shares lower on worries about rising Dreamliner costs and a decrease in cash flow. Stanley Black & Decker heads higher. The stock rose yesterday after reporting earnings up 43%. The tool company has benefited from strength in the housing recovery. And robots are in demand. iRobot shares are up 14% after its blowout earnings. The company, which makes robots for the home, had stronger than expected sales and revenue.
Never underestimate mom power. A mother in Florida was able to get 9,000 people to sign petitions at change.org and successfully prompt Toys R Us to pull Breaking Bad dolls from stores. The main character in the hit AMC series was made into an action figure. He also happens to be a drug lord. Toys R Us says the action figure is taking an indefinite sabbatical. On the economic calendar for today, it's initial and continuing unemployment claims, FHFA housing price index, leading indicators, and natural gas inventories. On the earnings calendar, watch out: Microsoft, Royal Caribbean, Dunkin' Brands, Pandora, Eli Lilly, Caterpillar, Amazon, JetBlue, Southwest, 3M, and Under Armour. Still to come, the changes happening in Social Security checks, plus the indie flick that is breaking box office records, and after the break, taking the risk out of investing. Social Security checks will be a bit chubbier next year. On average, people who receive Social Security will see 1.7% more each month. That translates into a $22 bump up. The 1.7% increase is higher than this year's 1.5% hike. During the recession, Social Security benefits remained flat as inflation fell. Bill Mueller has tips on making the most of your money when saving for retirement. Bill?
The investing rule of thumb is basically the older you get, the more conservative your investment strategy should be, so that by the time you retire, well, that you've done everything you can to protect your growth that's been building up over the years from the kind of wild market rides like we've seen recently. Let's talk with Christine Benz. She's the Director of Personal Finance at Morningstar. How do you determine what that right balance is between being too conservative and too risky?
It's a fine balance, to be sure. I think it depends on your time horizon, though. Think about how long you're likely to be retired, and for many people that's 25 or 30 years. And that means that they probably want to have at least half of their portfolio in stocks.
That much in stocks. A lot of people err on the side of caution there, but say much less in stocks.
They do, and you can get away with that if you have an awful lot of wealth. You can take comfort and peace of mind and have that very conservative portfolio. For most people, they want to at least out-earn the inflation rate. To do that, given how low cash yields are and bond yields are today, you do need to edge out on the risk spectrum. You do need to own stocks.
Stay ahead of the inflation rate, certainly.
Yes.
What is this bucket approach you talk about?
Well, it's an approach that was originated by a financial planner, Harold Ovensky. The basic idea is that you have this long-term portfolio, it's bonds and stocks, And then you also have alongside of it a cash piece of the portfolio. It's maybe going to cover 1 to 2 years worth of living expenses in retirement. That's your bucket number one. The idea is that that long-term piece of the portfolio can gyrate around, it'll do what it's going to do, but you'll know that you'll have your near-term cash needs set aside.
For somebody approaching or into retirement, is there a rule of thumb in terms of asset allocation?
Well, I think you want to think about your time horizon. Also think about how much of your income needs are being met through certain sources of income. So Social Security, pensions for those lucky enough to have them. Total those income sources up. See how far they're getting you in terms of your cash flow needs. And then if it turns out that you're just sipping from that portfolio, you could arguably have more in stocks because you really don't need the money. You don't need to batten down the hatches. Those who are drawing from their portfolios more aggressively on an ongoing basis will absolutely need to have more in cash, more in bonds, perhaps less in stocks.
Very sensible. Christine Benz from Morningstar. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Coming up, how new tech behind the wheel could factor into what's down the road for Ford. Plus, Brad Pitt plays the role of box office hero. That's next in Movies and Money. Business is jumping again at the box office. Our critic is here to talk about The Fury in more than one way. Hello, Eric.
Hello.
So The Fury having a good opening, but not what you would call a great opening.
No, this is an opening that I think Sony was, they're very happy to have a #1 movie, obviously, at the box office, but with Brad Pitt's star power and the promotion that they had, they were originally going to open this movie in November. They moved it in October to take advantage of possibly a weaker box office, but I think because Gone Girl is doing so well that the attendance was a little bit down on it.
And we'll talk about Sony in just a minute, but here's what happened at the box office over the weekend. Fury coming in at #1 at $23 million, followed by Gone Girl, The Book of Life, Alexander, and The Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day, and The Best of Me at $10 million. Now, Sony has just a couple of films left for the season.
Yeah, and it doesn't look like there's going to be enough, even with Fury, to sort of get them out of the red on the year. There's not been a very good year for Sony. Only 3 hits sort of for the entire year. The Equalizer is probably going to be their 4th one. Fury, I think once the overseas numbers come in, that's also going to be a hit. But with Annie and The Interview, I think 2 films that are probably going to do very well over the season. Annie could be kind of a surprise hit. The Interview, Seth Rogen and Franco's last film did very well. They could both be hits, but I don't think it's going to be enough to get Sony out of the red for the year.
There's another, what do they call it, a sleeper film, I guess? Birdman.
Birdman has been building up a lot of positive buzz through the festival season, Telluride and Venice and New York Film Festival. And this is a film that's probably going to win Michael Keaton an Oscar for Best Actor.
Opened in just 4 theaters.
Last week, yes.
And brought in almost $500,000.
Yeah, it's
unbelievable.
The 8th best opening per screen average for a live action film.
This weekend, here's what to watch at the box office. John Wick. Seen a lot of trailers with Keanu Reeves. Ouija, and then St. Vincent Goes Wide.
Yeah, St. Vincent, the Bill Murray movie that everyone's seen a lot of ads for. That's going to go wide. We're going to see if people, really love Bill Murray as much as they say they do. It's a crowd pleaser, should do very well. Ouija is probably going to be the film that opens #1 at the box office. It's that time. It's Halloween. Nothing ever good happens when you play with an Ouija board, except apparently for the people who made this movie. And John Wick, like you said, a lot of trailers are out there for it. Keanu Reeves. I'm kind of on the fence on this one. The action is actually very good in the movie. The story, not so much, but it's probably going to look at about a 4th place finish behind Gone Girl and Fury.
Okay, thank you very much, Eric.
Thank you.
Still to come, keep your eyes on the road. A trader makes a choice between owning Ford versus GM. Chart Talk is next. We are intersecting with Matt Kavanaugh of CMZ Trading this morning. Good morning, Matt.
Good morning.
You're watching those Ford and GM earnings roll out today. What do you expect for GM? Is this a stock you would buy because the company has had record sales?
They have had record sales, and it looks like things are actually going okay for them. There are some issues going on, some recall issues, some quality issues, but their business looks pretty good. We've talked about them in the past. I was not a buyer, but I think at this level, the stock's off about 25% from its highs, and I think it's a place where you can maybe find a little value.
Now, what do you think about Ford? There's been some issues happening at Ford. The sales numbers not exactly stellar the last time around. Would you be a buyer of this stock? It's trading around $14 here.
Yeah, you know, Ford's kind of got a little bit of the same issues as GM. They pre-warned, the stock sold off. I'm not as big of a buyer of Ford here. I have been in the past, but I think it's time to wait and see. GM looks a little bit stronger here, but these are both going to be good places to look to get a picture of really what's going on, not only here in the U.S., but all over the world. So great place to look.
Ford is counting on new cars and technology to drive business. For instance, we have this video of this driver assist technology that Ford is placing into cars. It said signals out to the driver just before a collision will put those brakes on. Could this be a game changer for Ford?
Yeah, absolutely it could. You know, the auto industry is changing so rapidly, and we see it all the time with Tesla at the front of the headlines and companies like Mobileye out of Israel. But, you know, there are new safety improvements coming, a lot of changes, and the company that really gets this whole driverless automated thing right, they're going to be the one that's going to be rewarded. So definitely something to watch and something that we'll all be paying attention to.
You have been a fan of Mobileye before. That's interesting, the cameras in the cars. It's pretty cool.
It's very cool, and you know, I think who wouldn't like to program home and read a book? So very interesting to see what's going to happen, and the technology is really amazing.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
The time has come for us to pull out of here for today. Coming up tomorrow, it's Traders Unplugged. The guys duke it out over companies buying back shares. Find out why it's a telltale sign about the stock market. From all of us at First Business, thank you for watching.